UX freelancing can be a tough and competitive field. That's why we're here with Didi Medina, a very experienced UX freelancer that lives in Jerusalem. Hi, Didi.
How are you?
And Didi is going to tell us how he manages clients, markets his UX skills, and stay sane while doing it. So Didi, welcome to UX on Coffee. I'll explain very briefly. This is we're having a coffee. And as long as the coffee is there in our cups, we can continue talking. Once it's gone, that's it. The conversation is over.
Oh, wow. How slow could you drink coffee?
So enjoy your coffee. So tell me more. Tell us more about you. What's your background? How did you start?
Yeah. So my background is in product design. I started off in design pretty young. I moved to Silicon Valley when I was about 17. Worked with a handful of startups, including eBay, Teespring, Mixbook, a couple. Worked my way up into a senior position, and then eventually got into management in the back end of the 4 years of my career. And then 2 years ago, I decided to go freelance and independent. So that's pretty much like the overall, like high level. Yeah, that's my background.
So for 2 years, you've been doing it, you gain a lot of experience. And I want to talk to you, because usually, we talk about the process, but I want to talk to you about the business of being a freelancer. So sure. Maybe you can tell me, first of all, like, what do you have to do to make it as a freelancer? What do you have to do to make it? Yeah.
I think a lot of stuff around the business. So it's funny, I kind of fell into a lot of this stuff by mistake. When I went independent, I wasn't trying to freelance. I was trying to start my own company. But I knew that I'd run out of savings faster than I can start the company and get it off the ground and make a profit from it. So I decided to make money on the side by freelancing. Except I wanted to retain like 90% of my time for my personal, project, and do as little as work possible while being as profitable as possible in freelance. So I guess I came at the whole thing very differently. And I was kind of stuck with a lot of dilemmas. I was like, all right, can I become popular on Dribble? Would that make me money? I was like, all right, maybe, but that would take a long, long time. So I can't do that. And I just went down the normal channels that most people go through when they think about business development or how to succeed and market themselves as a freelancer. And I realized a lot of them are really good, but they take up way too much time, and they don't let me get to my results faster. So I kind of used the Peter Thiel question, which was, how do you get 10 years of work done in like 6 months, right? It's not intended to say that you can do that. It's just you ask the question so you can come up with really, really interesting solutions. So with my freelance business, I kind of took a very practical path as far as marketing. I said, there's probably 100 people I can meet, and for every 100, there's probably 5 that would be very, very useful to me. So who are those 5? And I kind of started by networking with the rainmakers of the industry, which was I just had a hit list of all the VCs that are in Israel and started figuring out a way to get coffee with them. And then slowly they introduced me to their portfolio companies. And then those companies that didn't hire me or enjoyed the meeting introduced me to other people. And before you know it, moving to Israel, where I knew absolutely nobody, eventually I somehow figured out within 6 months how to get a business off the ground and a profitable one. So after that, even though I started doing freelance full time after that, I still retained, I would say, the process and marketing tactics that I used when I was under the impression that I will only use 10% of my time towards this business. It's been really effective ever since.
So what is it like? What did you learn in the last 2 years? What's new? Like, how did you, when you first started and now, what's the difference?
Yeah, when I started, I thought if you're a talented designer, you'll make it, right? I was asking myself questions like, hey, if I learned animation, if I learned more how to code, if I learned this, and this, then my business will be great. That's kind of like where I started, and I think that's where the head of a lot of freelance designers are at. And then I pretty much at one point realized that even if I become a really, really talented designer, like probably one of the best, I can only have like 2-3 clients at any given time. Right, I'm only still like one person. So I said, getting 3 people, 3 clients right, can't be that complicated. It's not a massive number, right? So I kind of switched my tactics and realized that the biggest lesson that I learned is I realized that it has very little to do with your design skills and more to do with your relationship building skills. How you leave an impression on people, how you meet them, how you help them, what you do for them, and how you make yourself rememberable to other people, whether you work with them or not. And that's kind of like what I leaned on ever since. And I kind of see my business more as a relationship management business. And that's what I think the service industry is, whether you're a real estate agent or you're a design freelancer or a lawyer. It doesn't matter if you're servicing people. It's all about relationships, like first. And that's kind of like the biggest shift that I learned in the first 7 months.
Because relationships will bring you other clients, or what is the benefit of keeping a great relationships?
Yeah,
other than the obvious.
I guess like I tried to understand the formula, or if you had to call it a formula, of like what gets you work, like what gets you clients. And, first you say, hey, if I have all this skill or all this different stuff, but really what gets people to like say yes to you is simply if they like you, right? People work with people they like. Right? They can suck, right? They can be like one of the least talented designers in the industry, but because they like you and because they like you, they end up trusting you, and because they trust you, they believe they can get to the result they want with you, unlike anybody else. And when you put precedence to getting people to like you for the right reasons, like they think you're a great human being, they think you're trustworthy, and you really focus on that relationship, it just leads to more business. More than anything.
Okay. I want to ask you a little bit more practical things from your day to day. I know you have great ways to kind of manage clients and manage projects and maybe price projects. Tell me a little bit about that idea of how do you understand the scope of the projects? How do you price it? How do you know that you're going to make a profit? That nothing will be added on to it in the future. I mean, it's all very complex. As one person show, it's sometimes very difficult to understand where to go.
Yeah, I think first you have to change one mindset, which is the client doesn't hire you, you hire the client. Now that might sound pretentious, but unless you look at it like that, you kind of forget that you have to do a due diligence phase, right? Where you have to try to understand what is the work before you do it. Whereas a lot of designers kind of come at the whole situation where, all right, person A wants to give me money, whatever he says, I need to do. Right. And that's not true. That's how that problem starts. Right. But if you look at it like you're hiring the client, right, just like you would when, you're buying something, when you're purchasing something, like you purchase a MacBook. Right. You don't just take whatever's on the shelf. You do your research. You figure out what the specs are, what you need, all this different stuff because it's yours. You feel like you're investing. Right. Now, when you take on that mindset, you take accountability of doing the homework. And where I learned this from is really from, security analysis, right? So like if you ever read like Benjamin Graham's book on security analysis and just on investments in general, what you learn is that there's really no good or bad investors. There's just like smart and stupid investors, right? And what that means is like if you invest in a property and you think it's going to make you a profit, and then all of a sudden after you get it, there's all these fees, like the elevator breaks down, the plumbing breaks down, all this different stuff just comes out of nowhere and that eats out from all of your profit. Whose fault is it? Is it just sheer luck, or did you not do enough homework to find out what's behind door A and B, right? And when you see a project like that, there's very few things you need to try to understand, but once you understand them, like you have to understand the nature of the behavior of the people you're working with. I think that's like the biggest variable. You have to understand how well or how organized they are as a team. You have to understand how they believe the work gets done, right? What they think they need, right? You have to understand their perceptions. Whereas like a lot of designers spend a lot more time thinking, all right, how do I offer a solution? Try to just understand what they believe a good solution to be. And if you take like this time to kind of understand all that, you'll know if someone's going to be a client from hell. You'll know if the project's going to go over time, or you'll know that they're going to do their part and they're going to make sure it's well managed. And if something goes over, it will go over, but it won't go over by much. And at the end of the day, you're going to walk away with still a good profit. So it's all good, right? So I guess just like learning to do your homework ahead of time, it's more of a methodology. And it all starts with understanding that you're hiring the client just as much as they're hiring you.
Can you give me more like practical, like what you told me that there was like a week, the first week where you go in and you will kind of examine each other, right? You interview each other, or you see what the scope is of the project. Give me that process.
Sure. Can't give away all of the goodies because then nobody's going to come to the workshop. But
okay. We'll talk about it in a second. But yeah, give me I think it's a very insightful to any process that you start with a client, and it's a great
Yeah. So I guess like in high level, if you look at the pipeline, from the point where you meet somebody to the point where they're willing to sign a contract to have you work on something from them, right? There's a couple of steps, right? The first step, you have like this opportunity that over time you're trying to understand more and more about, and once you hit a certain tipping point, you have enough information about it, you should feel comfortable signing a contract with certain terms, knowing that it's not going to bite you in the back. So what is those steps? So first, you want to understand 3 high-level things, right? Why this, why now, and why me, right? I like those like elements, right? And throughout the discovery phase, you're trying to come up with questions that help you deduce those things, right? So in the beginning, you're starting off with saying, all right, I want to just understand your worldview, right? You don't want to offer any solutions. You don't want to talk about any possibilities. You just want to know about the current situation. Questions that fall under that department is like saying, hey, what have you guys done till today towards this project? How much time have you guys spent? What kind of resources have you spent? What was the outcome of those efforts? Like all those things. You just want to understand like boilerplate, what happened up until this point and what is the current state of things, right? And then you want to ask them, what do you believe you guys are aiming to do? Like, what are your aspirations as a company? What is your goal as a company, as a project, as a product in the next like 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? Help me understand how you see that. Now, a lot of designers will intervene here, and this is really important. Is like, don't just every time they give you an answer, if it's not deep enough, like go further. Oh, why is that the case? Or why is that? And keep digging until you get their worldview. So that kind of escalates over time. So you pretty much like ask, what is the project? Why is this project so important to the company? What opportunities does this open up? If the project goes well, what opportunities does it open up for the company, right? When does it have to be done by? Why is it so important for it to be done by that date? Why are you guys outsourcing this versus hiring someone in-house to do this, right? Why haven't you guys done this in-house, right? Why is now, like right now, the starting point, the right time to start? Why don't we start on this in 3 months from now after you guys finish your fundraiser or after you guys finish this other project that you guys spoke about, right? So you're just doing research. You're not intervening. You're just trying to understand the lay of the land, right? And then once that's done, you'll have like a whole set of assumptions, right? If they say, oh, we need to do it now because A, B, C, and D reason, most of what they're saying is not facts. It's just their belief. So say for what it is, it's an assumption. So you put together a list of assumptions. We believe if we get it done by this date, that would offer this opportunity. We believe that if we do it for these users, then that would open up that opportunity. We believe if we do this, it'll prevent this horrific outcome from happening. We believe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right?
Okay.
You create like all these assumptions, right? Now, once you have these assumptions, this is what I call like, I initiate a discovery phase, which is usually a 1 to 2 week process. I charge a fee for this. And from there, I say, okay, fine, here are a bunch of assumptions. And this is the team that's going to be working on this project once we sign the contract. I'm going to delegate an assumption to like every person. If there's an engineering assumption, let's say there's an assumption that if we use a certain front-end framework, we'll be successful for A, B, C, D reason. Okay, front-end engineer, go do research on that. Tell me why that's the case, right? Now, the reason why you want to delegate these assumptions to the appropriate parties is because you want to see when you like collaborate, meaning you give them work, you want to see how they respond. Do they come back with just shallow answers? Oh, I looked into the framework. It just seems to be very responsive, very flexible, and it's just what everybody's using, so clearly we should use it, right? And if that's the kind of answer you're getting from the engineer, trust me, once you sign the contract, he's not going to go deep into anything. He's going to give you very broad strokes on everything, and you're always going to be picking up the slack for him, right? So that's what you're doing. You're just delegating assignments from these assumptions to the people who can handle them the best, right? And you're just working with them, and you're facilitating the process. And maybe there's an assumption that you take home as well, right? But this is not for you to do everything. It's for your chance to collaborate. And lastly, the reason why I charge for this process is not because it actually takes up my time, right? At this stage in time, I would only do a discovery phase if I believe they're a company I want to work with, right? Or I'm really excited to work with, or I think it's going to go well, right? But the reason why I charge a fee is actually because I want to test them on how they handle payments, right? So like I give them like a contract. How long does it take the process? How much back and forth is it? This is just like a little snippet. Now, you might think to yourself, hey, if I charge them for like a discovery phase and we're not even starting the project, there's no way they're going to work with me, right? So, and like I said, I'm not charging them to make a profit. So what I do is I tell them, hey, it's going to cost you, let's say, a flat $1,000 for this discovery phase. And if you sign the contract, when it's done, this $1,000 will be automatically applied as a credit to your project, right? And if you decide you don't want to work with me after that, I keep the money. And if I decide I don't want to work with you, I refund the money, right? So it's like a win-win situation for the client, always takes his better interest. Now, on top of that, the reason why you want to say, hey, I'm applying it as a credit, because now you already generated inertia. When they get to the contract, they're going to think about not wanting to let go of that $1,000 investment that they already made, right? Instead of thinking, oh, is this amount too much, right? So it starts building inertia to like get that bigger sum signed, right? So it's you kind of see it like it just goes up to the altar. It's not really intended for your benefit from a profitable standpoint. It's just intended to help you get clarity on the project and build inertia to get that contract, that bigger contract signed. So if you're signing a $1,000 discovery phase, I'm assuming at least a 5x multiple for the project itself, right? That's where the real money's at, right? Okay. And again, in the discovery phase, you're not doing much work. You're delegating it. You're seeing how people collaborate, and you're there for questions. And you might take home one assignment, but that's all of like 3 hours of your time,
okay.
Right? Yeah.
Very cool. Wow, that's the experience. I can see that there's a lot of experience in that. So, 2 more questions.
Sure.
Because we're running out of coffee almost.
Wow, you're quick.
So, give me like a tip or 2 for dealing with a difficult client.
For dealing with a difficult client. Whew. At what point? Is it like later on after like? Let's say you set expectations that something would be delivered and it didn't get done, or you're doing your part and they know that they're just being difficult.
What's the most common? Like, give me some like what you come across the most.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of times, right? So there's like this saying, right? Like, man plans, God laughs, right? And when you're signing a contract, you say, oh, this can get done within a month. This can get done within 2 weeks, right? And everybody thinks like we're really, really confident this is all going to go according to plan. Nothing goes according to plan, right? Something will happen. The estimates, the deadlines, they're all just there for show. It's something you want to aspire to hit, right? Sometimes you hit them, sometimes you don't, especially more complex projects, right? Now, knowing this, you should premeditate that something will go wrong, right? Moore's law. It's like what can go wrong will go wrong, right? And something will go wrong. It always does. When something starts creeping up, don't hide from it, right? Don't try to like wait for the client to realize it and then come to you and say, hey, right, why did this happen? Rather, if you see it coming, go to the client and say, hey, this is starting to come up. Why is it happening? And now you might ask, like, what the hell just happened, right? The client, right, now all of a sudden feels responsible for the outcome of the project itself as well, right? And if you ask the question first, you will save yourself from being the boxing bag, right? And more times than not, like when you have a company and you have full-time employees within a company, they're always going to blame the consultant first. When something goes wrong, they blame the consultant, right? Not unless you bring it to their attention first. Not saying you have to go to them and say, hey, I'm sorry this happened, this is my fault. No one trusts somebody that doesn't have their shit together. So you're not saying it's your fault. You're not blaming them. You're saying, hey, something's happening. We collectively need to do something about it before it becomes a problem, right? Instead of hiding from it. And then it comes up from the client and they say, hey, why is this happening? But at that point, they already believe that you caused it because they came to you, right? Okay. Now, if it's already happened, if they already told you, hey, this happened, right? The best advice I can give is like sit there like a therapist and hear them out, right? Like be like, oh, what happened? Let me understand, like this, that, the other. Once you just like listen, don't give answers, just like ask questions. They're feeling like you're absorbing their shock, right? And that for some reason makes them feel like you care and you have things under control. So it will calm them down. And then once they feel like you understand what's going on and the urgency of it, only then you'll have the right to get things back on track. And then the next time, just try to be ahead of the curve. Meaning don't get the work done on time. Like obviously do that if you can. But if something pops up, be ahead of the curve. Address the issue before the client does.
Okay, cool. All right, so Didi, we are doing a workshop. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn in this, and we actually, that's why I wanted to talk to you today, but we're also doing a workshop on March 11th, 2019,
right.
the UX Salon conference. So who should come for this conference? Like who's the client for that?
I would say anybody that's a freelance designer or is trying to get into freelance design, but whether they may be coming out of college or they're coming from a full-time job and they feel like there's a lot of ambiguity around, what it's like to be a freelancer, and how to do that properly, right? By no means is the course to teach you top to bottom how to be an effective freelancer, but it teaches you some of the most pressing issues that tend to cause the most amount of problems, right? And most of the times, if you can get rid of these two sources, a lot of the issues tend to go away. So I guess recapping, it's for people who are already freelancers that find themselves in situations where they're constantly catching up with chaos instead of feeling like they're leading their own path, right? For people who want to get into like freelance as designers but just don't have any experience doing it and are afraid of it, right? Come check it out. Definitely when you come out of full-time, a lot of your design skills are obviously useful. You need to do the job, but you are running your own business, and that is a big part of that whole thing being successful. So getting a glimpse of that might help calm you down and might help you see it in a very human way and relate to it in a more productive way. And further, it's for people who are already maybe successful at being a freelancer and want to just observe new tips, tricks, maybe other methods to the same problems they're already solving, and learn new things. So it'll definitely challenge I know plenty of designers that are freelancers that are successful. They charge by the hour, that want to learn about value-based fees, right? So that can be useful to them. I guess anybody who's new, anybody who's in it, anybody who's trying to get into it.
I don't know about you, but I'm excited. So thank you for taking the time to have a coffee with me. As you can see, I'm good. So I'll see you again in March 11th in your workshop. And again, thank you very much. So have a good evening. Bye for now.
Thank you so much, sir.